Hand over your cabin for prom night or for free. That's the first thing this spoiled brat blurts out as he struts into my auto shop, demanding my $2,000 Memorial Day rental like I'm his personal servant. I'm standing there covered in grease and motor oil, staring at him like, is this kid out of his mind? And before I can even wrap my head around it, here comes his mother, the infamous Mama Karen type. My son always gets what he wants. I have connections everywhere. Now I'm starting to boil. I hint that my wife might have something to say about those threats, and this woman actually laughs in my face. Sweetheart, I run this town. Your little housewife can't touch me. What she doesn't realize is she's just declared war on the wrong family. I thought it was going to be just another ordinary Tuesday at Rivera's Auto Repair. My coffee was going cold while I was elbow deep in a busted transmission. Classic rock was humming through the radio, and the sharp smell of motor oil hung heavy in the air. Then a shiny red BMW rolled into the lot, polished so perfectly it looked like it had never seen a speck of dirt. Right then, I knew my peaceful afternoon was about to go down the drain. Out steps Jack Collins, 18 years old, dressed in a polo shirt worth more than most people's monthly rent. He walks with that arrogant swagger that screams, "I've never been told no in my life." This kid drives a different flashy car every week, always decked out in the latest gear, like he's on his way to a country club instead of talking to a mechanic like me. Jack doesn't even glance at my "please wait" sign. He marches straight up to where I am working and declares, "Mr. Rivera, I need your cabin." No excuse me, no when you have a moment, just straight demands, like I'm his employee. I wipe my hands on a rag and turn to face him, already seeing the storm brewing in those cold blue eyes. "What about it, Jack?" He grins, like he's about to make me the offer of a lifetime. "I need it for prom night, Memorial Day weekend, the whole weekend, actually." When I explain that my cabin has been reserved since last August by the Henderson family of loyal customers who've rented it for 3 years straight, his face twists like I just told him Santa Claus isn't real. This kid literally cannot process the idea that something he wants might already belong to someone else. "But it's for prom," he insists, as if those 3 words should magically override contracts and commitments. "My girlfriend's family is important. We need somewhere special for photos." The entitlement is staggering. He honestly believes his high school dance takes priority over legal agreements. That's when I hear the sharp sound of designer heels clicking against concrete, and my gut tells me trouble just escalated. Out of the BMW steps Christina Collins, Jack's mother. She moves like she's making a grand entrance at some political fundraiser. She's in her early 50s, but keeping herself polished is clearly a full-time job. She's wrapped in a blazer worth more than my monthly cabin income, carrying a leather portfolio thick enough to choke a horse. Christina radiates authority. She's been HOA president for years, and everyone in Pine Valley knows better than to cross her unless they're ready to have their lives ripped apart piece by piece. She doesn't just win arguments, as she obliterates her opponents so completely they never dare challenge her again. She strides into my shop without so much as an invitation, heels pounding like a war drum. "Mr. Rivera," she says, her voice smooth as silk but sharp as steel. "I hear there's been some confusion about the cabin." Confusion, that's her word for my legitimate rental agreement. She acts like I'm the one who needs clarification, like she's swooping in to fix the situation. I explain again that Memorial Day weekend has been booked solid for months. Christina listens with this patient little smile, the kind people use when they're humoring a child who doesn't understand the rules of the world. Her eyes lock on mine, dissecting every reaction, measuring how much pressure it'll take to make me break. This isn't just a chat, it's a tactical strike, a calculated psychological warfare. She opens that oversized portfolio and starts laying out official-looking documents across my workbench, like she's preparing a courtroom battle right there in my shop. That's when I decide to pull out my ace. "Just so you know, Christina, my wife, Laura, is the police chief here in Madison. She always tells me to handle these kinds of issues the proper way, through official channels." Normally, that little fact makes people pause. Usually, I see the flicker of surprise, the recalibration when they realize they're dealing with a law enforcement family. But Christina? She laughs. Not nervous lateral amusement, like I just told her the funniest joke she's heard all week. "Mr. Rivera," she says with a smirk, "I work with county officials all the time. Cooperation is how things get done around here." She waves off Laura's authority like it's nothing, dismissing her as some traffic cop instead of the chief of police. What Christina doesn't know is that Laura isn't just Pine Valley's police chief. For the past year and a half, she's been running a federal corruption task force investigating the exact kind of political games Christina plays. That part's classified, so of course Christina has no clue. From her perspective, Laura is just a small-town officer married to a mechanic. She has no idea that my wife has been working with federal agents, reviewing classified documents, taking encrypted calls late at night, and quietly building cases that could send people like Christina to prison for decades. But ignorance doesn't protect her. Christina just stepped into something much bigger than she realizes. Jack shifts uncomfortably beside his mother, and for the first time since stepping into my shop, the kid realizes this isn't just about renting a cabin anymore. He can feel the tension snapping in the air, and it's clear even to him that what started as a simple prom request has escalated into dangerous territory. Christina, however, is just warming up. She leans casually against my workbench as though she owns the place, exuding the kind of confidence that comes from a lifetime of never losing a fight. "Gregory," she says smoothly, "may I call you Gregory?" You see, cooperation is the lifeblood of our community here in Pine Valley. Business licenses, zoning approvals, permits, county inspections, it's all about keeping everything running harmoniously. Every word is chosen like a weapon. She isn't directly threatening me, but the message is crystal clear. She has the ability to twist the system until my life becomes a living nightmare. Christina is no amateur at this. She's mastered the art of intimidation through paperwork and political strings. What she hasn't mastered is recognizing when she's messing with someone who has connections far stronger than her county-level influence. Satisfied she's made her point, Christina gathers up her stack of papers. She expects me to fold, just like everyone else in Pine Valley does when she leans on them. "I'll give you a little time to reconsider, Gregory. Sometimes it helps to step back and look at the bigger picture." She pauses at the door, her hand on the handle, and delivers her final line like a sharpened blade. "I do hope you'll make the right choice here for everyone's sake." And just like that, she's gone. The scent of expensive perfume lingers in the air, along with the unmistakable aftertaste of being threatened by a professional manipulator. Jack trails after her but glances back at me with an almost apologetic look, as if even he knows his mother just went too far. I stand in my shop, trying to make sense of it all. 20 minutes earlier, my biggest worry was a stubborn transmission. Now I've apparently been dragged into a war with Pine Valley's most powerful woman, and my Laura's authority is locked behind the professional boundaries that keep her from interfering in neighborhood disputes. That evening, I sit Laura down and explain everything, carefully framing it as harassment instead of outright threats. She listens with that careful, neutral expression cops use when they're processing information. Finally, she says, "Honey, I can't step into HOA disputes. My position requires neutrality in community matters. But you need to document everything, keep clear records and let the system work." Easy advice to give when you're not the one being targeted. I can see it kills her to stay on the sidelines, but she's bound by her badge. As for Christina, she leaves my shop calm and collected, but I catch her pulling out her phone, already texting someone the second she hits the parking lot. Who was she contacting? What strings is she pulling to be this confident? The next morning, my anger shifts into overdrive. You know that feeling when you expect maybe 1 or 2 spam emails. Instead, I open my inbox to find 5 cancellations, all of them for Memorial Day weekend. 5. That's not just a loss, it's my entire peak season gone in an instant. And the reason? Every single cancellation cited the same excuse: safety concerns and neighborhood disputes. Neighborhood disputes? I've never had a single problem with anyone in Pine Valley until yesterday, when Christina Collins decided my cabin belonged to her son. The one that really hit me hard was from the Hendersons. They've rented from me for 3 straight years, always early with payment, always respectful, always leaving the place spotless. But this time, Mrs. Henderson's email was dripping with regret. "We're so sorry, Gregory, but we were given troubling information about safety issues surrounding your property. Troubling information from who? I don't need to guess. I'm still sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, trying to figure out how Christina even got her hands on my customer's contact information when the doorbell rings at 8 a.m. Who shows up at someone's house that early, unless it's either a crisis or a power play? I open the door to find a tall, lanky man in a tailored suit that probably costs more than my monthly mortgage. He looks like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Nervous energy radiates off him in waves. "Mr. Rivera?" he asks, shifting from one foot to the other. "I'm Richard Collins, Christina's husband." "Well, this should be interesting." Richard looks like he hasn't had a full night's sleep in weeks. His tie is crooked, there's a faint coffee stain on his briefcase, and his hands actually tremble as he tries to hand me a stack of official-looking documents. "My wife asked me to speak with you about the cabin matter," he mutters. "Perhaps we can find a broken bar mutually beneficial solution." The way he says it, like he's reading directly from a script written by someone else, tells me everything I need to know about their marriage. Richard has legal credentials. His bar association certificate is poking out of his briefcase, but everything about him screams desperation. He keeps sneaking glances at his watch, then at his car, like he expects Christina to appear any second to grade his performance. When he shifts into legal jargon talking about county regulations, zoning compliance, and permit law, his voice steadies a bit, like it's the only ground he feels safe standing on. Richard seems more comfortable rattling off legal jargon than actually holding a human conversation. "Mr. Rivera," he begins, "my wife has deep ties within county planning. She sits on several committees, advisory boards, development initiatives. A broken bar." His words trail off the moment he catches my expression. I'm clearly not buying into the soft sell approach any more than I believed Christina's hardball tactics yesterday. This isn't about committees or community service, it's about raw power and a woman who's decided she wants what belongs to me. And right at that tense moment, Maria Santos jogs up my driveway in workout gear, like some kind of suburban guardian angel who shows up exactly when things get interesting. Maria's been my neighbor for about 2 years, ever since she transferred here from Denver. She works some sort of government job that keeps her flying in and out, but around here she's just a friendly neighbor who chats at the grocery store. "Oh, hi Gregory," she says, beaming like it's any ordinary morning. "I was finishing my run and noticed you had company. Everything okay?" The color drains from Richard's face the second Maria introduces herself. I don't miss the flicker of recognition in his eyes. He knows who she is, or at least knows enough to realize a federal agent showing up mid-intimidation isn't good news. Maria keeps things casual, but I can see her sharp eyes noting every detail, storing it away like evidence. "Business dispute resolution," she says lightly. "That's actually something I handle on my line of work, Gregory. Don't forget you can document everything. Paper trails matter when you're dealing with multiple parties and complicated regulations." Richard mumbles a quick excuse and scurries off, practically tripping over himself to retreat. Maria lingers just long enough to offer some neighborly advice. "Keep detailed records, take photos of anything unusual, know your rights as a business owner." She never directly says what she suspects, but her meaning couldn't be clearer. Document everything, because this is going to get uglier before it gets better. After she leaves, I dive into researching Christina Collins online. What I find is both impressive and terrifying. She isn't just some power-hungry hoe president throwing her weight around. Christina sits on the County Planning Commission, chairs the Pine Valley Business Development Board, and has her name attached to the Pine Valley Youth Foundation. Her fingerprints are on meeting minutes, planning documents, and newspaper clippings spanning years. She's built herself into a political spiderweb, with threads stretching through every level of local government. No wonder she laughed when I brought up Laura. In Christina's world, knowing the right people outweighs badges, laws, or fairness. But the deeper I dig, the more suspicious it all looks. The Pine Valley Youth Foundation receives more than $200,000 a year in federal grants, yet I can't find solid proof of any real programs. Their website is filled with generic buzzwords, their social media presence is practically non-existent, and their official office is nothing but a P.O. box at a mailing service downtown, for a charity that supposedly serves hundreds of kids. They're surprisingly invisible. Then there's Christina's personal life. The flashy BMW, the designer wardrobe, the mansion in Pine Valley's most expensive neighborhood, all while working as a nonprofit director. Married to a small-town lawyer. The math doesn't add up, and it's becoming obvious Christina's influence may be funded by more than bake sales and charity auctions. Maria's warning about documentation is already paying off. By Thursday afternoon, I get a certified letter in the mail. My hands actually shake as I sign for it because official government letters almost never bring good news. I tear it open and my stomach drops. It's exactly what Christina hinted at. A formal order for a full property and zoning compliance inspection of my cabana due within 10 days. If I fail to meet requirements, I risk losing my business license entirely and could be slapped with fines up to $25,000. But what really makes my blood run cold is the paperclip. Attached to the notice is a handwritten note, on county letterhead, that reads, "Mr. Rivera, this inspection was requested by a third party with significant county connections. I suggest you prepare accordingly." Some people don't take losing lightly. Even the county inspector, as someone who should have stayed neutral, felt the need to slip me an anonymous warning. That tells me Christina's reach goes deep enough to scare government employees into risking their own jobs just to give me a heads up. That evening, Laura drags herself home, looking worn out from another long day on her classified assignment. When I explain how the cabin situation has escalated, she gets that look, the one where she's fighting every instinct as both a cop and my wife. "Honey," she says carefully, choosing her words like she's testifying under oath, "I can't get involved in home matters. You know that. My position requires neutrality, especially when it involves prominent citizens in the community. But I can see it in her eyes. It's killing her to stay out of this while her husband is being targeted by people who should know better than to mess with a law enforcement family." She pours herself a glass of wine and sits beside me, offering the same kind of guidance she'd give any civilian. "Document everything, Gregory. Keep detailed records, follow the rules, let the system work." Easy for her to say. She's not the one being crushed by a woman with county connections and a vendetta. I glance back at the inspection notice, reading that handwritten warning for what feels like the 10th time. Some people don't like to lose. And I keep asking myself, what exactly has Christina set in motion that even county inspectors are too scared to ignore? At first, I wasn't terrified, but as I dig deeper into Christina's background, the fear starts to creep in. You ever peel back layers on something and realize it's not just complicated, it's dangerous? That's what this feels like. Every new detail makes it look more like a bomb I can't stop dismantling. 3 days of research and I finally understand. Christina Collins isn't just a pushy HOA president. She's built herself an empire, and somehow my small cabin rental business has become a threat to something much larger. The Pine Valley Youth Foundation keeps coming up like a splinter under my skin. They pull in more than $200,000 a year in federal grant money, but when I call asking about volunteer opportunities, nobody can give me straight answers. "We're restructuring our programs," they say. "Check back next quarter." Next quarter? Federal money is supposed to be helping kids now, not later. Maria Santos, my neighbor, slowly becomes my unofficial research partner. We frame it as neighborly chats over coffee on my back deck, but her questions cut like an investigator's. She asks about Christina's finances, her influence, her connections, all with the ease of someone who's been trained to dig. "You know, Gregory," Maria says thoughtfully while stirring her coffee, "legitimate nonprofits are usually very public. They want recognition, publicity, donors, community engagement. The ones that stay in the shadows broken bar, well, let's just say they usually have reasons for that." She doesn't finish the sentence, but she doesn't have to. Maria nudges me toward public records, campaign finance reports, and county meeting minutes. "All available to any citizen," she says, "if you know where to look." So I start digging, And what I uncover explains why Richard Collins looked so rattled when Maria showed up on my porch. The breakthrough comes from a completely unexpected source: a quiet woman hardly anyone pays attention to. Mrs. Carter, an elderly neighbor who lives 3 blocks over, corners me at the grocery store one Saturday morning. She looks nervous, constantly glancing around like she's afraid the wrong person might overhear. "Mr. Rivera," she whispers, "I heard about your trouble with Mrs. Collins." A broken bar. I used to work for the Youth Foundation as a part-time bookkeeper about 18 months ago. My pulse quickens. If she worked inside Christina's operation, she might be holding the key. Mrs. Carter leans closer, her voice barely audible over the grocery store buzz. The numbers never matched the programs: federal grants for summer camps that didn't exist, after-school programs with no records, sports equipment ordered but never delivered to anyone. She swallows hard. I started asking questions, trying to figure out the discrepancies. Mrs. Collins fired me within a week. Then, with trembling hands, she pulls a worn manila envelope from her purse. The paper is creased and softened, like she's been carrying it around for months. I shouldn't have kept these, but something didn't feel right. I made copies. Inside are photocopied bank statements, grant applications, and expense reports, and what they reveal is jaw-dropping. Money flowing into the Pine Valley Youth Foundation from federal sources, then funneled through shell companies and fake vendors. Thousands of dollars supposedly spent on equipment that never shows up. Program costs listed for activities that never happened. Services provided to kids who don't even exist. This isn't sloppy bookkeeping. It's deliberate, organized theft of federal fraud on a scale so massive it makes my cabin rental look like pocket change. Mrs. Carter, a seasoned bookkeeper with 40 years' experience, knows the difference between a mistake and a crime. And what she's showing me isn't a mistake, it's fraud, plain and simply running deep, and running for years. Have you ever stumbled on something that made you question everything you thought you knew about the people living around you? Share your own story. Yes, but I doubt they could top what I uncover next. Because what Mrs. Carter gave me, that was only the beginning. Her files pointed me toward a financial trail that led places I never imagined and involved people I never thought I'd suspect. Following Maria's advice, I started cross-checking the Youth Foundation's questionable transactions against Christina's campaign finance reports from her run for city council 2 years earlier. The patterns are shockingly clear and disturbingly advanced. Money moves out of the foundation into a web of shell companies, then reappears as campaign donations from supposedly unrelated individuals scattered across different states. It's not charity, it's money laundering, wrapped up to look like community service. And it's been operating smoothly for at least 3 years, based on the public records I can access. Christina isn't just siphoning federal money, she's using it to buy influence. Suddenly, her smug confidence and her cozy ties to county officials make perfect sense. When you're bankrolling campaigns with stolen federal funds, people stop asking questions. But Christina isn't the only Collins running games. Jack, her son, has picked up a strange new habit. I notice him lingering in coffee shops when his mother meets with county officials, sitting quietly in the library when his father handles legal work, or parked at the edge of the park with his phone out, camera pointed in their direction. At first, I think maybe he's finally showing interest in the family business, maybe preparing for a political career of his own. That illusion vanishes the day I catch him reviewing video clips on his phone outside the county courthouse. Jack isn't studying his parents out of admiration, he's secretly recording them, collecting dirt to use for his own gain. The spoiled kid has turned to blackmail, leveraging secrets to squeeze out more money, more freedom, more toys. The tragic irony? He doesn't realize that the embarrassing footage he's hoarding for pocket money actually contains evidence of federal crime, evidence that could lock both his parents away for decades and strip him of the very privilege he's trying to exploit. By Tuesday night, I've pieced together enough to see the broad shape of Christina's operation, but without more proof, I'd look like some conspiracy nut rambling about corruption. That's when Richard Collins makes his most desperate move yet. He shows up at my shop after closing, pale and trembling, eyes darting nervously toward the parking lot like a man on the run. This time, there are no legal threats, no county notices meant to intimidate. Instead, He's carrying a briefcase heavy with documents and a story that chills me to the core. "She doesn't know I'm here," Richard whispers, hands shaking. "But you're in far more danger than you realize." Before I can respond, his face drains of color. Christina's BMW pulls back into view, and he bolts like a man terrified of his own shadow. For days, I'd been working with scraps and fragments, but Richard just handed me a complete map of Christina's empire. Finally a real evidence. But with it comes a price. His documents don't just prove Christina's guilt, they reveal the reach of a laundering scheme that snakes into county government, touches multiple federal agencies, and endangers anyone who so much as glances at it. By 2 a.m., I'm at my kitchen table surrounded by stacks of bank records, financial statements, and wire transfers, staring at the scope of what's in front of me. This isn't an HOA president throwing her weight around. This is organized crime, dressed up as community service, and somehow, I'm holding enough evidence to bring down half the county's political machine. The next morning, Maria drops by under the usual cover of neighborly coffee. But her questions tell a different story. As she flips through Richard's evidence, the mask of casual curiosity slips. She's all business now, her tone precise, professional, unmistakably official. "Gregory," she says, measuring each word, "these transactions show patterns consistent with structured financial crimes, the kind of thing that doesn't stay local, the kind of thing that requires federal intervention." Maria frames everything as a what-if discussion, explaining, in general terms, how federal investigations move forward, how evidence has to be preserved, and what protections exist for civilians who cooperate with law enforcement. She never directly asks me to become an informant, but the suggestion lingers in the room long after she's gone, like smoke that refuses to fade. When she leaves, I can't help but notice she's carrying copies of every document Richard provided. Out loud, she keeps up the story that she's just looking into non-profit accountability for her own curiosity, but we both know better. Meanwhile, Jack Collins carries on with his clumsy blackmail scheme, blissfully unaware that the videos he's collecting are far more dangerous than he realizes. Thursday afternoon, I spot him at the Pine Valley Diner, hunched in a corner booth, his phone angled to catch his parents' private conversation over lunch. Christina and Richard think they're discussing campaign strategy and foundation business where no one is listening. Jack thinks he's catching them talking about his allowance or tuition bills. What he's actually recording is an unfiltered discussion about laundering money, paying off officials, and erasing evidence before next month's federal audit. The irony is brutal. In his greed, Jack is documenting the kind of incriminating conversations investigators dream about. If I could warn him, I would. But some lessons, he's about to learn the hard way. Christina, on the other hand, is starting to crack. Outwardly, she still plays the part of the perfect, civic-minded HOA president. But the cracks are showing in more closed-door meetings with county leaders, more phone calls made from her car instead of her office, and a sharper, edgier tone when addressing neighbors. The woman who radiated confidence days ago now looks like someone fighting too many battles at once. Richard's anxiety, Jack's strange behavior, the looming audit, my refusal to surrender the cabin, all of it is closing in. By Friday, she makes her biggest misstep yet. Instead of hiding behind paperwork and red tape, Christina comes straight at me. She arrives at my property with a full Energia County inspector, a code enforcement officer, and a private investigator lugging high-end camera equipment. This isn't an inspection, this is a coordinated assault, designed to dig up any technicality that could be used to shut down my business for good. What Christina doesn't realize is that Maria helped me prepare for exactly this moment. Every permit is current, every improvement documented, every safety measure logged in detail. My cabin is spotless on paper and in practice. After 3 hours of combing through the place, the worst they can find is a loose deck board, which I repair on the spot while they watch. Christina's frustration says it all. That was her last legal weapon. From now on, if she wants my cabin, she'll have to break the law to get it. That evening, everything changes. Laura comes home from work looking like she's been carrying a secret too heavy to bear. She pours herself a glass of wine and sits down, eyes serious, her voice low. "Gregory," she says, There's something I need to tell you about my job, is something I haven't been able to share until now. My pulse spikes. Her tone makes it clear this isn't small talk. This is life-altering. For the past 18 months, she continues, I've been leading a federal task force. We're investigating corruption in local government and money laundering, bribery, election fraud, crimes that stretch across state lines and involve federal funds. She pauses, watching my reaction, weighing whether I'm ready to hear the rest.